This is the pre-production diary for the Knock Knock podcast. My name is Jason B. Jones. Diary entry 02. This podcast idea all started with my daily commutes to work each morning. I work in the music industry, so as odd as it sounds, you kind of get tired of listening to music. And not that I don't love music. Music is my passion, but sometimes when you listen to music, when you work with it all the time, you start to listen for different things. You know, I would listen for, is this chorus good, or is this song sound marketable? And, sometimes you just need a break from that. So I leaned more towards podcasts and started to download them pretty regularly to be able to pass the time to and from work. And just like many of you that are listening today, it all started with Serial. I dug in deep to Serial, and just like all of you, kind of got that fever. And that led to Undisclosed, and then that led to Truth and Justice. And then from there, it was Criminal and Finding Tammy Jo and Someone Knows Something, and many more. But most recently, it's been Up and Vanished. Now let me rewind a bit. Many years ago, I started to look at setting up Google alerts for different search terms like Betty Jones, Starkville, Mississippi, Labor Day murders. And, I was pretty discouraged that I didn't get many hits back. I got a few, over the years, some updates, but I realized really quickly that because this case was so old, there wasn't much of a digital footprint online to be able to dig into. And so I just kind of thought that nothing would ever happen. And that's when I started to listen to podcasts. And podcasts were this new medium that allowed people to be able to tell stories and be able to grab an audience's attention and allow that audience then to go and help find answers. It was almost like making this community of people that cared about a singular subject. And that was so fascinating to me. And so when I started listening to Up and Vanish, that was the one that really clicked for me, because Payne Lindsay was a guy that was kind of like me. We both sort of worked in the media industry. He wanted to take a turn at trying to do a podcast and found an old cold case that was close to home for him and started just to tell that story and dig into it a bit. And because of the community that he built, man, he was able to then start to smoke out these stories and these things that people had sat on for years, and those started to bubble up to the surface. And it was amazing because I got to listen to it in real time as this case began to find conclusions and to find truth and find answers. And that was so encouraging to me. And I had this moment where I thought, man, what if I started to tell this story about my grandmother that had been this black spot in my family's history, this thing that we never thought was going to be resolved? What if I just became the conduit to tell that story? Not for my own glory, not to try to become a big podcaster, but just to make the vessel that allowed people to be able to talk about this event that was so tragic and that was so unsettling, and see if we can find some answers to what happened. And at the very least, if we can just talk about these wonderful women and be able to dig into their lives and bring awareness to them. And, in a way, when we talk about people and we talk about the memories that we have of them, it brings them back to life in some sense. And that's, if I don't do anything else, wow, wouldn't it be amazing for me to just get a glimpse of the life that my grandmother lived? So that's what I'm doing. And although this is super painful and unresolved, it's not my goal to try to just stir stuff up and to bring up hurt. But I believe that building a community that can talk about something so tragic, that can be a road to healing. And if I can do that, man, I feel like Betty would be proud. This episode has been made possible by my friend Dan Pitts. Thank you so much for your love and support. Special thanks to the Knock Knock team, Chris and Lacey from Swell Story Media, Rebecca Jones, Jason Adams, Simon Jones, Cole Flynn, and Colleen Jones. You guys are my rock. I'm eternally grateful for all that you do. Be sure and connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Knock Knock Pod. There you can ask me any questions, leave your comments, or just say hi. Also, make sure and share our website, knockknockpodcast.com, with your friends and family. Full episodes will launch in September, and we'll be back next week with a new pre-production diary entry. Thanks again for subscribing to the Knock Knock Podcast.